Hey, economic warriors and financial freedom fighters. Welcome back to Boss Economics World, where we slice through the government's economic baloney like a hot knife through butter. I'm your host, the no-nonsense, number-crunching truth-teller, here to expose the chaos, corruption, and clownery that's tanking our wallets, our markets, and our futures. Buckle up, because today, we're diving headfirst into the tariff-laden, trade war-ridden dumpster fire that is Donald Trump's latest economic master plan. Spoiler alert, it's a mess, and you're paying for it. Let's go. Oh, folks, here we go again. The man with the golden hair and the not-so-golden economic ideas, President Donald Trump, is back at it, swinging his tariff hammer like a kid in a candy store who doesn't realize the candy's made of glass. In a recent interview on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo, taped on June 27, 2025, Trump casually dropped this gem about his self-imposed July 9, 2025, trade deadline: "I don't think I'll need to extend it. I could, no big deal. No big deal. No big deal." Tell that to the millions of workers, businesses, and consumers who are staring down the barrel of a potential economic meltdown, courtesy of your reckless tariff threats, Mr. President. For those of you new to this circus, here's the deal: Trump has given countries until July 9, 2025, to secure trade deals with the US or face higher tariffs, potentially up to 25% on their exports. And just to keep things spicy, he mused about making the deadline shorter during a press briefing, saying, "I'd like to just send letters out to everybody, congratulations, you're paying 25%. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is over here trying to put lipstick on this pig, claiming, "We have countries approaching us with very good deals," but admitting that not all of them might be finalized by the time Trump's tariffs kick back in on April 2, 2025. Oh, and Bessent's grand plan? Ink 10 or 12 of the important 18 deals by Labor Day. Gee, Scott, that sounds like a real tight ship you're running over there. But let's not kid ourselves, this isn't a negotiation strategy, it's a tantrum. And like all tantrums, it's going to leave a trail of broken toys, in this case, broken supply chains, broken businesses, and broken economies. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of this economic onion, from the surface-level headlines to the deep, systemic rot that's fueling this chaos. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll see why Trump's tariff threats and the government's mismanagement are a one-way ticket to Recessionville, population, all of us. Let's start with the obvious: Trump's tariff threats are pure theater. He's waving around this July 9, 2025, deadline like a loaded gun, but his own team, looking at you, Scott Bessent, can't even agree on whether it's realistic. On one hand, Trump's out here saying, "I could extend it, no big deal," while on the other, he's fantasizing about slapping 25% tariffs on everyone like it's some kind of economic piñata party. And what's the goal? Ostensibly, it's to reduce trade deficits and eliminate barriers, but let's be real, Trump's track record on trade deals is shakier than a Jenga tower in an earthquake. Take the UK deal, for example. Trump's been hyping it up as comprehensive, but as of June 2025, critical points remain unresolved. According to a June 2025 report from the Financial Times, negotiations on agriculture and digital services taxes are still stuck in limbo, with the UK refusing to budge on its National Health Service protections. Then there's the China Accord, which Trump loves to parade around as a win, but let's not forget, fentanyl trafficking issues are still unresolved, and US exporters are no closer to cracking open the Chinese market than they were in 2020. Oh, and India. Trump says they're close to a deal, but a July 2025 analysis by Bloomberg suggests that India's reluctance to lower tariffs on US agricultural goods means any deal is more of a pipe dream than a handshake away. So, what's the takeaway here? Trump's trade strategy is a house of cards built on quicksand. He's got no clear plan, no coherent timeline, and no real wins to show for it. But hey, why let facts get in the way of a good tweetstorm, right? Now, let's dig a little deeper. What happens if Trump follows through on his tariff threats? Spoiler alert, it's not pretty. Tariffs are essentially a tax on imports, which means higher costs for businesses, higher prices for consumers, and a whole lot of pain for the global economy. And don't just take my word for it, let's look at the data. According to a July 2025 report from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Trump's proposed tariffs could shave 1.2% off global GDP growth by 2026 if fully implemented. That's right, folks, 1.2% might not sound like much, but in a global economy already teetering on the edge of recession, it's the difference between a soft landing and a faceplant. The IMF also warned that the US could see a 0.8% drop in GDP growth, with consumer prices rising by an average of 3.5% due to higher import costs. And who pays for that? You do, at the grocery store, the gas pump, and everywhere else. But it's not just the US that's in the crosshairs. Take the European Union, for example. A June 2025 study by the European Central Bank, ECB, estimated that a 25% US tariff on EU exports could cost the bloc €120 billion in lost trade annually, with Germany's auto industry, already reeling from supply chain disruptions, taking the biggest hit. And let's not forget China, which is already dealing with a slowing economy. A July 2025 analysis by Goldman Sachs predicts that Trump's tariffs could reduce Chinese GDP growth by 0.5%, exacerbating an ongoing property market crisis that's already wiped out $7 trillion in household wealth since 2021, according to Reuters. And here's the kicker, tariffs don't even work. A 2025 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBR, found that Trump's 2018-2019 tariffs on Chinese goods failed to significantly reduce the U.S. trade deficit, while costing American consumers $40 billion annually in higher prices. So, what's the game plan here, Mr. President? Tank the global economy to own the libs? Genius. But let's not stop at the surface or even the point-level pain. Let's dive into the deep end of the pool, the systemic rot that's allowing this tariff tantrum to happen in the first place. Because, folks, this isn't just about Trump's ego or his Twitter finger. This is about a government that's been asleep at the wheel, prioritizing political theater over sound economic policy, and leaving the rest of us to pick up the tab. First off, let's talk about the U.S. trade deficit, which Trump loves to rail against. Yes, it's true, the U.S. trade deficit hit $1.1 trillion in 2024, according to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, BEA. But here's the thing, the trade deficit isn't the boogeyman Trump makes it out to be. A trade deficit simply means you're importing more than you're exporting, which can be a sign of a strong economy, consumers have money to spend, businesses are investing, and so on. In fact, a 2025 report by the Peterson Institute for International Economics, PIIE, found that the U.S. trade deficit is largely driven by macroeconomic factors, like a strong dollar and low savings rates, not bad deals with other countries. But instead of addressing those root causes, like, say, incentivizing domestic savings or investing in education to boost competitiveness, Trump's solution is to slap tariffs on everything and call it a day. Brilliant. And let's not forget the role of Congress, which has basically abdicated its responsibility to check the executive branch's trade policy. Under the Trade Act of 1974, Congress has the power to oversee and approve major tariff actions, but in recent years, it's been content to sit on its hands while Trump runs wild. A June 2025 analysis by Politico found that bipartisan gridlock has left Congress unable to pass meaningful trade legislation, leaving the White House with unchecked power to weaponize tariffs. So, while Trump's out here playing economic Russian roulette, Congress is busy arguing over culture war nonsense. Great job, guys. So, where does this leave us? In a word, trouble. The combination of Trump's tariff threats, the government's mismanagement, and a global economy already on shaky ground is a recipe for disaster. Let's look at the warning signs. The Conference Board's leading economic index, LEI, for the U.S. has been declining for 6 straight months as of June 2025, signaling a high risk of recession within the next year. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's recession probability model puts the odds of a downturn by mid-2026 at 58%, the highest since the 2008 financial crisis. And globally, the World Bank warned in its June 2025 Global Economic Prospects report that escalating trade tensions could push the world into a synchronized slowdown, with emerging markets bearing the brunt of the pain. But hey, maybe I'm being too pessimistic. Maybe Trump's tariffs will magically fix everything, and we'll all be swimming in jobs and prosperity by Labor Day, as Scott Bessent hopes. Or maybe, just maybe, this is all a giant con, designed to distract us from the real economic problems, like stagnant wages, skyrocketing healthcare costs, and a national debt that's ballooned to $36 trillion, according to the U.S. Treasury Department's June 2025 data. Nah, that couldn't be it, right? Folks, here's the deal, Trump's tariff threats and the government's mismanagement are not just economic blunders, they're a betrayal of the American people. You, the hard-working taxpayers, the small business owners, the everyday consumers, you're the ones who will pay the price for this recklessness. Higher prices, lost jobs, a weaker economy, that's the legacy of this administration's America First economic policy. And the worst part? It's all so preventable. If the government got serious about addressing the root causes of our economic challenges, education, infrastructure, healthcare, we wouldn't need to resort to these tariff tantrums in the first place. So, what can you do? First, stay informed. Keep watching Boss Economics World, where we'll continue to call out the nonsense and hold the powerful accountable. Second, demand better from your leaders. Write to your congressperson, vote in the midterms, and let them know that you're not going to stand for this economic clownery anymore. And third, protect yourself. If you're an investor, diversify your portfolio, look at gold, look at international ETFs, anything to hedge against this tariff-induced chaos. If you're a business owner, start stress testing your supply chains now, because the storm is coming. Until next time, keep fighting the good fight, economic warriors. This is Boss Economics World, signing off, because someone's got to tell the truth around here.